Is the Bible anti-woman?
That's a great question. Let's talk about that.
Yes.
This is the Good Question Show. Just tell me what I wanna know. The Good Question Show.
Hello and welcome to the Good Question Show, and a warm welcome to our guest Annerie Logan, folks. Doesn't she just have like the coolest name
She
ever?
really does.
Annerie
Really does.
Logan. She literally sounds like Wolverine's cousin.
I was thinking that.
Or you can rather say I'm married to Wolverine.
In her own words, I guess so. So we are speaking about a very kind of dense topic tonight, the fact that is the Bible anti-women. So because this is actually such a dense topic, we decided, all the ladies voted, majority stood, that we are actually going to do this as a two-part episode. So tonight's going to be part 1, and then next week is going to be part 2, where we're actually going to invite our male co-hosts back again and have more interesting conversations about this.
I mean, it's true, because it's mad expectations out there about women, what a woman should be, what a good woman is like. I mean, in the 1960s, it was you had to take care of your kids, bake some cookies, classic
I can't
apron.
bake anything, just saying.
Okay, lucky for you, that's not what we're dealing with in this century. This century is about being independent, being outspoken, getting your suit and tie, getting your coins, your red bottom Louis Vuittons, going out there. Or with the burst of Instagram influencers, it's like, what do you look like? What's your waist size? It's crazy.
So, Annerie, maybe just to kind of start the conversation, we have some male viewers out there.
Some
male viewers. Why should they keep watching this episode and not turn off all their devices right now?
You mean other than the fact that Natasha's single?
That's a good point. Natasha's still single, guys, so keep watching. We'll put like her number at the bottom somewhere. You can contact her.
Yeah, no, I think this is actually one of those moments where guys normally ask, they don't really understand what is going on inside a woman's mind. What do we really think? What are the things that we are worried about or concerned about, or where do our thoughts go? If you have those questions, this is the show for you. If you want to know what women really want and what we really think, this is maybe the best place to stay tuned into. Yeah.
So keep watching, guys. But since we are celebrating Women's Month, you're right, Viva la women, I actually have some interesting just facts and statistics about women that I read up on these last few days.
Yeah.
So currently in the world, there are actually more women graduating from colleges all across the world than men.
Okay.
Like 60% of women, college graduates are women, aren't they? So now more than ever, women are actually pursuing careers, which I think is fantastic. Just about to think of, in the 1960s, the expectation was you had to, be a stay-at-home mom and bake things, which I would have failed horribly at. So the average age of a woman in the 60s giving birth to her first child was 21, which would mean that all of us would have had lots of babies by now, okay? Whereas today, the average age of a woman giving birth is actually 29, which still gives us some time, Natasha, which is really cool. On the topic, of beauty and women, this one is really interesting for me. The average woman will spend 29 minutes per day applying makeup,
I believe that.
just to achieve a natural look.
That's true.
I'm confused about that, because is my face not natural enough? Is that what it's saying?
I myself have fallen prey to that. Yeah, you need to add foundation and lashes to look like you have lashes.
Yes. So if I want to have a natural face, I need to add things to it. That's basically what that statistic says. And then maybe just lastly, this one was shocking and a little bit funny. But the average woman throughout her lifetime, so let's say all of us started applying makeup at the age of 13.
Yeah, 13, 14,
probably, right? Let's say the average woman does that. That would mean she would spend about $300,000 in her lifetime on beauty and skincare products.
This is crazy.
For us as South Africans, that translates to over 5 million rand being spent in your lifetime on improving your looks.
Wow.
That's crazy, right?
That's really
Crazy. So, Annerie, what can you tell us about your own life as a mom?
Well, I think just maybe to get onto that, I think why that actually shocks me so much to hear those statistics is because all of those things actually point towards the fact that there's something that we are supposed to find worth in.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, I'm not going to spend 500, what was it, $1 million, or what did you say? I'm not going to spend 5 million on cosmetics, if there wasn't something telling me I needed to spend that amount of money, I wouldn't be so concerned about whether I should study or not if there was not pressure on me to figure that out. And then I'm not even going to talk about when I should have babies and how many babies is acceptable. And for me, the sad thing about all of that is basically we are listening to voices saying to us as women, these are the areas where you find worth. These are the things that is going to make you feel that you're good enough, that you have value, and that you have worth. And that's actually very, very sad for me. Because we know as Christian women that it shouldn't be that. We know that we're supposed to find our worth in God, but it doesn't make it any easier.
Because still spend 5 million rand on
exactly. It's really horrible actually to think about. I don't think there's a place where I want to laugh too much about it because I'm going, it's true. There's a sense of truth. And for me, I'm thinking of it just from the perspective of a mom. I think if I had to open up the life of being a mother, I feel like I'm opening up a whole box of judgment. Honestly, I know both of you have not yet entered that season.
Nope.
But as much as there's so many good things about going to that season, one of the biggest things that I remember looking back is feeling judged. And even now, if I look at as soon as I got pregnant and that whole season, there's nothing that you can do that is not going to make you feel judged. Whether it is deciding how you give birth. Is it going to be natural? Is it going to be planned? Will it be medication or not? Are you going to have a doula or not? Is it going to be Enya music and water? I just lost them. You will, don't worry. And you will be judged on that. Okay, whether you know that or not. How do you not know that, girls? And then into the baby, you know, suddenly you judged on whether you breastfeed or whether you use a bottle, whether what you eat is good for your baby or not, if you're using a cloth or not, whether you change them the right way, because there's apparently right way. And finally, here I am. I've got a daughter who's now 4, and I still feel anxious, even when I talk about it, because there's still things that you can be judged on, what she eats, what she doesn't eat, if she's homeschooled, whether she goes to school, does she have manners, does she have not, am I too controlling, am I too relaxed, you know. I think as a mom, it just feels like no matter what decision I make, you're going to be judged. And I think to end it on your Instagram note, I was laughing as you said it, because there's a whole world on Instagram of influence of moms that add on to this by making you feel that if you don't have all of it together, if you can't do all of it perfectly right, then you're also going to be judged. And at the end of the day, I think the saddest part for me is you would think the judgment comes from men, maybe, but it comes from women. It comes from other women. And I think that's, for me, something that I would love to see change, where we as women actually celebrate each other's choices and how we do things instead of adding to that voice of judgment, because I think that would be amazing if we can go, in spite of how you choose to be a mother, you're a good mother, no matter what you choose to do and how you choose to do it.
Yeah, because it kind of feels like the expectations are always changing.
Yeah, they are. I think your story actually it reminds me of an analogy that was once shared with me about a father, a son, and a donkey. Now, stay with me.
Donkey.
Yeah, did I say donkey?
I'm just going a donkey.
Wow. Oh, okay, but I was like, because you know
animal.
sometimes my accent, but it's okay. So stay with me, right? Okay, so it's a father and a son, right? And they have a donkey that they just purchased from the market, right? So they're on their way home, right? So they're just, walking. And then they meet somebody that says, why are the both of you walking? You have a whole donkey. And back then, obviously, donkeys were used for transportation. So they're like, you can get on the donkey and then go home. They're like, oh my gosh, that's a good idea. Let's do that. They get on the donkey. They're happy on their way, meet somebody else. That says, this poor donkey, both of you on this donkey, the father needs to get off because obviously the son is young, so he needs to stay on the donkey. You're old, you've had experience, walk. Sharp, this guy is like, okay, let's go. They're walking, they meet somebody else that's like, you're young, you've got energy, why are you letting your old man walk while you stay on the donkey? Get off the donkey, let your dad go on. This guy's like, okay, cool. we're going to not do anything that anyone wants to say, because I mean, the standard is always shifting. It's always moving. So if you place your worth, or you place what you view yourself as in the standard, you never win, literally.
So then obviously for us as Christians, you know, we are kind of inclined to think then, okay, well, society standards is always changing, you know, to heck with that, never going to be able to fit into that anyway. Let's go to the Bible, you know, let's then ask God to rather give us purpose, worth, identity, whatever. But now the problem is, and Aneri, this is why I want to ask you something. The Bible has actually been accused of being very much anti-women.
Truly.
Because let's be honest, there are some very offensive scriptures in the Bible that when we read it like that, it's very anti-women. I mean, there's a scripture saying that women should be silent in church, which
I would struggle.
But you see, which for all three of us, that would be a massive problem.
Exhibit A.
Exhibit A, because you two lead worship and I preach, okay? So all of us are in violation of that already.
Yeah.
There are other scriptures that say women are the weaker ones, okay? So is the Bible anti-woman, yes or no?
No.
It's not like yes, it's not like yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
No, the Bible is not anti-women. I think that's actually one of those things. If that's all you see in the Bible, then I almost want to challenge you, like, are you reading your Bible? Because you have to read the Bible in context. I think that's one of the most important things that we need to get across. Yes, there's a lot of controversial scriptures in the Bible about a lot of topics, by the way, not just about women.
Sure.
But again, understand the context and understand the culture. And in the culture of those examples, in those days, women were looked down upon in the culture and in the time. Women didn't have worth. They didn't they weren't allowed, to do certain things. They couldn't own certain things. They didn't even sometimes have a say on their children or who they got married to. So let's just put that into context. The thing that I love is then Jesus comes in the middle of that context.
Yeah. Sure.
And Jesus comes and he throws everyone's perspective of how we should treat women and how we should value what women have to say. Because in every example that you look at, Jesus does the opposite.
Sure.
And again, not just with women, but in this instance, I love it. One of my favorite examples is the woman with the alabaster flask. I must say, alabaster.
Alabaster.
I'm hearing the American alabaster
Join the accent team over here.
I'm hearing my Durban husband in my head, Annery. The alabaster flask. Okay, so why I love that story so much is because it actually pinpoints to everything that wasn't supposed to be the norm.
Yeah.
Yes.
This woman comes into a room that was already, she wasn't allowed to be there.
It was filled with
Men
actually.
were, culturally, the men would socialize on their own and the women would socialize on their own. I would already struggle just there. Let me just say. I want to see what's going on in every room, okay? So she comes into a room that she's not supposed to be in. Then she brings a gift that is, in those times, was the most expensive gift she could own as a woman. It was the most valuable thing that she had. And then she does the most, I want to say, controversial thing that she could do. She walks up to the leader in the room, who was Jesus.
True.
Okay? Didn't announce herself, didn't ask permission. She just went straight to him. She breaks it open. She then does, and I want to say this. The thing that people say, this is so typical girl. She starts crying. She's emotional in front of everyone.
Yeah. Sure.
But I see that, why do we say that is a girl thing to do? I think it showed her brokenness. It showed her humility. It showed that she wasn't scared to just bear herself completely.
Sure.
Because in that moment, she chose Jesus to be the most important.
Sure.
And so, she pours herself out in front of all these men, and they did have something to say about it, which again, from the culture, is understood.
Yeah.
And Jesus' response is so beautiful because he basically, and I'm paraphrasing, says, what she is doing here is what everyone should be doing. I'm the most important, not who she was. And of course, her background. I mean, she was a woman who was a prostitute. So, I mean, the setup couldn't have not been more worse for her. Yeah. And then Jesus goes, this woman who everyone despises, who everyone looks down on, this is how we all should be.
Sure.
I value her. I value what she does. It's more important what she did here than anything else. I love that.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, You can't say the Bible is just against women or counter women when you have a figure like Jesus that says, no, I'm going to do the opposite. In my eyes, I made women who has just as much worth and value in my eyes.
That's not the only example, right?
Yeah, no,
Yes.
I think for me, the story that comes to mind when you speak of, and I think what we've been discussing all along, almost these stereotypes or these boxes that women are placed in, whether it be cultural or just generally, and which is why we even encouraged men to stay and watch on so that they can understand the lived experience, because they have a duty to lead the women in their lives. You know what I mean?
Amen.
So
I like
it's-
that. That's very
The
nice.
story that comes to mind is, for me, the one in Luke 10 with Martha and Mary, where the women, stereotypically their role was to prepare the guests, you know, make sure everything is going well. And Mary took the role that was stereotypically a man's role, sitting at the feet of the rabbi, the teacher.
Sure.
And when almost Martha,
Controversial.
exactly, and like you said, it comes from the women. Martha came up and said, but Jesus, do you not care that my sister has left me alone? He said, but no, you care about the little things. Not to say, obviously, that
Yes.
cooking in the kitchen or cooking up a storm is not necessarily your role, whatever, but that what is important to you. It's not
Yes.
what you're supposed to be or what you ought to be, but what God says you are. And the first thing that he wants is you at his feet.
I think what I love about both, you know, and we shouldn't actually call them stories because there are true things that happen, you know, but what I love about both instances, you know, in scripture is the fact that Jesus was looking beyond the kind of cultural and even societal expectation of those women in that moment. He was looking beyond those things, you know, he was looking beyond at what they should or should not be doing, because he knew in that moment the more important thing was to present himself to them. You know, before we start talking about should we, shouldn't we, what's our role, where's my place, you know, he knew, and he illustrated first and foremost, your place is at my feet. Your place is relationship with me. So maybe just to kind of, you know, throw it out there as the kind of last encouragement, if you doubt whether or not Jesus valued women, just go read through the Gospels, but specifically spend some time on the resurrection story. So the story where they record Jesus getting up out of the grave, you know, the very first witnesses that he reveals himself to as a newly resurrected Son of God is women. And for that time period, that would have been shocking, to say the least. Because if you had to go to court, you know, and kind of defend the resurrection, you would not want women to be the witnesses to that event, because as we've said, they had zero social standing, right? But here Jesus chooses to reveal himself to women, and today, thousands of years later, the fact that the resurrection witnesses firstly were women is one of the leading arguments for why the Gospels are reliable, for why it is actually accurate history. So I like what you said, Aneri, about the fact that the culture was kind of anti-women.
Yes.
We can't deny that. Jesus was not.
Yes,
And
yes.
Jesus is not. He actually values women a lot, you know, and I think that is just an incredible kind of encouragement to all women watching this. I think kind of the point of this part of the conversation is, if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, go for it.
It's okay.
You know, bake the cookies.
Bake them.
Have, you know, hundreds of kids if you want. If you want to climb the corporate ladder, go for it.
You go, girl.
You go, Glen Coco. You climb the corporate ladder.
Climb it.
Be financially independent. If you want to spend 5 million rand on your appearance, go for it. Okay? Because at the end of the day, and I think that's the encouragement from our side, at the end of the day, none of those things is ever going to give you value and worth anyway. It's not about what you do or how well you do it. It's firstly about whether or not you actually know your worth comes from Jesus. And I think that's a wonderful encouragement.
Yeah, it's beautiful words that we've spoken about, but I think a lot of people are probably asking the questions. As we said in the beginning, there's some really difficult conversations that need to be had. I mean, the elephant in the room, you know, Paul says, be silent, like as in silence. Like, what about that? What's up with that?
Yeah, I actually also wanted to say, as soon as we started talking about what about all those controversial scriptures, you know, I'm also thinking, looking at the world right now, we're in a very, very interesting time where feminism has almost taken over the way we view things, how things are said. Again, on Instagram, we really love Instagram, but we hate Instagram because, again, we're being told feminism, you know, but what does it actually mean? And I'm kind of faced with, I'm a woman of God.
Yes.
What am I supposed to think about it? Does it even fit into what I'm supposed to think
Yes.
about? So
the question then is, should women be silent in church? Are we allowed to preach? Is feminism a good godly thing or not? And I think those are brilliant questions, and that's exactly why we are going to devote a whole nother episode to actually talk through a whole bunch of those things. And I think it's actually going to be so cool to have guys part of the conversation as well, because we actually need each other to figure out these kinds of topics. So make sure you tune in for next week's episode of the Good Question Show, where we are going to tackle difficult scriptures as well as the elephant in the room called feminism. So thank you so much, ladies. This was lots of fun, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.